Well, more on Governor Newsom today and his failed state. Brian O'Shea joins us, investigative journalist, Daily Clout, and host of Unrestricted Invasion, 30 years of military and government intelligence. He has some insights into what he thinks is going on here and how it's funded. You can follow Brian on Brian O'Shea, SHEA, SPI on X. And then Rogan O'Hanley. We are only allowing individuals of males of Irish descent into this program today. Also known as DC Draino, DC_Draino on X, 7 million followers, formerly an entertainment lawyer, now a conservative commentator, University of Chicago Law School graduate. He's got a lot to say. We're going to get into DCDraino.com. There's so much going on. It's ridiculous. And Brian's going to freak Susan out, so you'll hear from her today too. Be right back after this.
Our laws, as it pertains to substances, are draconian and bizarre. The psychopaths start this way. He was an alcoholic because of social media and pornography, PTSD, love addiction, fentanyl and heroin. Ridiculous. I'm a doctor, for sake. Where the hell do you think I learned that? I'm just saying, you go to treatment before you kill people. I am a clinician. I observe things about these chemicals. Let's just deal with what's real. We used to get these calls on Loveline all the time. Educate adolescents and to prevent and to treat. If you have trouble you can't stop and you want help stop it, I can help. I got a lot to say. I got a lot more to say.
I'm excited to bring you a new product, a new supplement, Fatty. I take it. I make Susan take it. My whole family takes it. This comes out of, believe it or not, dolphin research. The Navy maintains a fleet of dolphins, and a brilliant veterinarian recognized that these dolphins sometimes developed a syndrome identical to our Alzheimer's disease. Those dolphins were deficient in a particular fatty acid. She replaced the fatty acid, and they didn't get the Alzheimer's. Humans have the same issue, and we are more deficient in this particular fatty acid than ever before. And a simple replacement of this fatty acid called C15 will help us prevent these syndromes. It's published in a recent journal called Metabolites. It's a new nutritional C15, pentadecanoic acid it's called. The deficiency that we are developing for C15 creates something called the cellular fragility syndrome. This is the first nutritional deficiency syndrome to be discovered in 75 years and may be affecting us in many ways, and as many as 1 in 3 of us. This is an important breakthrough. Take advantage of it. Go to fatty15.com/Dr. Drew to receive 15% off a 90-day starter kit subscription, or use code Dr. Drew at checkout for that 15% off, or just go to our website, drdrew.com/fatty15. All right, I'm going to bring Brian O'Shea in here in just a second. I completely misspoke, or I was given the wrong information about his podcast. It is, first of all, called Investigate Everything, which is what Brian is known for, which is why when he comes on this show, Susan spins out for about 3 weeks. And you can also follow him on Daily Clout, CLOUT, dailyclout.io. So before I get to my guest, I want to add something to the Fatty 15. Fatty 15 is about reducing oxidative stress on membranes, right? Life is an interesting phenomenon. One of the features of the universe is entropy, the complexity. And complexity is always expanding, always getting more complex. That's a physical feature, second law of thermodynamics, with one brief exception. For a moment, life orders entropy. It, of course, reasserts itself, and we start breaking down as we age. It's primarily done through oxidation. That's why I'm very big on Fatty 15. I also am now creating a product through our V-Shred friends at V-Shred MD called NR Boost, nicotinamide riboside Boost NAD, which reduces oxidative species. I added to it something called PQQ, which also fights against muscle loss by increasing the health of mitochondria and the number of mitochondria in muscle. Muscle loss as we age is a very significant contributor to the adverse events associated with aging and the aging process generally. So that is NR Boost. And then this is something called Cinosync. I just happen to have in my hand. You see them all just below me here. Cinosync is resveratrol, which helps enhance natural killer function. Remember, I spoke to Dr. Pat Xiongshun. He has been raising the alarm about COVID and the vaccine reducing natural killers. Natural killer cells, T cells, are the mop-up cells that reduce the risk of cancer getting through and more serious infections. We need to do things and resveratrol is one of those things. I added to that fisetin. That's what's here in this. That's what I make my family take, the Senesync and the NR Boost and the Fatty 15. We all take it every day. The fisetin cleans up sort of debris and inflammatory debris of old and dead tissue. All right, let's get to Brian O'Shea. Brian, again, that's vshredmd.com. I want you to go. Brian O'Shea, Investigate Everything, dailyclot.io. And thank you, Brian. Tell us what is behind the riots in Los Angeles. We were watching your stream and your podcast, and again, Susan started screaming at the phone she was holding.
I'm a big fan.
And said, we got to get Brian in here right away. I got to have more. So go ahead. What's behind all this?
This seems to be a party of literally every communist organization in the country coming together to not only get these LA riots going, but it seems like the LA riots are a dress rehearsal for the No Kings protest coming up on June 14th this weekend, all over the country and in other parts of the world.
And so No Kings protest, is that something that's likely to be violent, or is it going to be just a quiet demonstration that is specifically what we are protected in our rights as Americans? Not to be violent, as somehow that is also protected. That is not, criminality is not protected.
Exactly. Well, don't forget that these LA protests were also scheduled to be peaceful. And so anytime the same organizations, and it is the same organizations such as Indivisible, the RevComs, the Revolutionary Communists of America, it's all the same actors that we saw back when you had me on the show about the Ruth Sent Us protests after the Roe v. Wade decision. So based on, based on their history, I expect them to be violent. Now, I will say all of their websites say these are peaceful. This is the law. This is how you do it. As a matter of fact, I attended the peaceful protest training last night on Zoom that was being hosted by No Kings. And it was actually put on by ACLU. But what happens is, I think it's kind of like Odysseus in the Odyssey, where they were escaping from the Cyclops. And to get away from the Cyclops after they blinded him, they got underneath his sheep and they rode out on the sheep, and he felt the top of them to see if there were any men riding on the sheep to get out. And they snuck out. I think the peaceful protesters, who I believe a lot of them legitimately either just like protests or kind of believe in this stuff, and they're used as the sheep to get the violent protesters in.
So there is intentionality in the violent protesters, or at least a sort of tacit invitation to them. What about something you were talking about in your stream about these people dressed as construction workers and the CCP, and also coming in under the underbelly of the sheep?
Yeah, well, as it turns out, yes, they were dressed like construction workers. But due to my incredibly informative training by the ACLU last night, where I attended as anonymous, those are people called marshals. And what marshals are is they wear the construction vests, and those are the people, illegal aliens or protesters that get in trouble can try to run to if they need help, are the marshals. And then the marshals are in direct contact with the security personnel, who I'm going to try to identify this weekend. I happen to live in Boston. I could take my pick of protests.
And so there aren't, you aren't as concerned about there being other country bad actors involved in this, though I'm sure they're involved somewhere.
I really, I just assume all of these massive, well-coordinated, almost militarily precise protests definitely have foreign actors. Don't forget that the Action Network, which is funded by Act Blue, is that CRM, or customer resource management system that was used to organize a lot of the protests up through 2024, where you can basically get access to that with a credit card, and there are no credit checks. This is in the best interest of everyone from real estate interests to foreign governments causing unrest in this country. And there's a lot of things coming up. As this is happening, we have China literally surrounding not only Taiwan in military drills, but also they've planted their flags on some northern Filipino islands in the last 10 days. So I always try to zoom in and zoom out. While everyone's focused on this, National Guard is focused on this, we do have to pay attention to our borders and unrest in other cities.
And if indeed these are supposed to be peaceful protests, who brought in the cinder blocks and the hammers to break up the cinder blocks to throw at law enforcement?
Well, that is the million-dollar question. I doubt we'll get to see the footage of who dropped off entire pallets of what looks like Home Depot and Lowe's bricks on every street corner.
Families of the Home Depot workers?
Well, that's my other question. Who has been arrested other than criminals? Has there actually been people collaterally dragged in by ICE?
There was one guy arrested who was in charge of one of the larger groups. He's been released. For the size of these protests and the amount of violence, which, as you know, I tuned in Saturday afternoon and ran a live stream the whole time. So I've been watching it beginning to end. For the amount of violence, destruction, outright assaults on police, it's been, I won't say a handful of arrests, but a very small size of arrests that you'd expect.
It was 95
the good news is they
last
are
night.
Arresting them. Yeah, that's very
in
small.
total, that's the only amount of people
LA.
that have been arrested. Yeah.
And also, I think those are mostly people that were defying the curfew, right? Isn't that a lot of it?
No, altogether, it's been 95,
Right.
which seems really low.
Well, Brian,
go ahead.
Go ahead, finish your thought, please.
No, I was going to say that it's interesting that up until, I believe, Sunday night or maybe even Monday night, there was barely any LAPD interaction with all these violent riots. Then they had this outsized response from police stations as far away as Fernando Valley and all these surrounding police stations and counties, where they just had this big line of police cars. It was very performative. And that I think was in direct response to, President Trump sending in Marines or getting them ready to go in.
Well, Brian, tell us more about your podcast and Daily Cloud.
Wait, before he goes.
Okay.
The billionaire who
Walton
is
Christy Walton.
No, there's the one that is in China or in Shanghai. Yes, let's talk about him.
So Roy Singham is the husband of Jody Evans. Jody Evans is the founder of, you may remember, Code Pink, who was against all the Iraq wars and all that. She used to be very pro-human rights and anti-CCP. She met Roy Singham, who shares an office with Xinhua Newsnet in China. He's also got, he's wanted in several African countries for being basically a propagandistic warlord. This according to the New York Times in August 2024. And he seems to be behind everything money-wise, but he also comes from that CRM world, like Salesforce and everything. And so what I'm trying to do right now is I'm trying to connect him to some of these action networks and open collectives, these mobilize.us, some of these sites that these protesters use to organize. And I'll say it again, Dr. Drew, and you mentioned it a long time ago. I still don't understand why people on the other side of the aisle are not getting organized in the same way. These tools are out there. I don't want to promote them, but we need to do something like this because it's highly efficient and it gets a lot of people on the street really quickly from anywhere in the world.
But what would I think that the people that are attracted to, and I hope DC Draino's, that Rogan's listening to this too, because this is something I want to address with him. I think people that are drawn in, Christy Walton is like out of central casting. Mm-hmm. There's a certain personality style that is no longer interested in getting things done. They are interested in discharging emotion, and not just discharging theatrics, into not just discharging emotion, but their own aggressive impulses. They have to disavow and see them as out there. And then they have to take those emotions they do have as a result of seeing only aggression outside of themselves and inject those feelings into the world, which is why you see so many women with the megaphones yelling at the cops and stuff. Where did they go? What did they get done? Nothing. This has been going on for years. And when this all started, I kept asking, what do they want? Okay, you're out in the streets, you want something. What do you, in the 60s, when there was demonstration, there was Equal Rights Amendment now, get out of Vietnam now. That was why people hit the streets. There was a very specific intent. Now it's about, look, Christie's about discharging, I care so much. They don't care so much. Look at what they did to the people in New York. The actual citizens were so severely harmed and inconvenienced. They don't give a shit about that. Oh, but I care. No, you don't care. You want to perform. And I don't think anyone on the other side is interested in performing. They're interested in getting things done. And so policy, politics, maybe organizing better politically, I don't think, unless you can see something that organizing, other than creating horrible conflict between two mobs, is there anything else you could see accomplishing by a right-leaning mob?
I'm not advocating for a right-leaning mob. What I'm advocating for is the more organized use of tools such as this to get people to get out the vote, get people registered, that sort of thing. I think, Scott Pressler did a good job with that, but this is their go-to thing. Like they all have these apps on their phones, and they don't just use them for the violent mobs. They do use these to get out the vote. They do use these to get out for the midterms, for everything. But with that said, to your point about the emotions, you're absolutely right. And it's interesting when I had Xi Van Fleet, she's the former China, she lived through the Red Terror in China.
I spoke to her. Yeah.
She's wonderful. But she mentioned something to me that I never knew before, and that's the Red Guard, which is very much like Antifa back in Mao's time. They were all upper middle class kids. They weren't farmers.
Of course.
And just like a lot of these crazy people you see out there, the organizers, the people at the center, are upper middle class kids right out of or in college. As far as the emotion goes, I think this is the problem we have when people, recess is not even really much of a thing anymore. For my 13-year-old, they barely go outside. There's no adventure for people anymore. So these groups, they know how to get at them in that Joseph Campbell type of way of like, this will be your moment. This will be the moment where you were part of something bigger than yourself. And, how you get around that, I don't know, but there are better ways for people to get that emotion out because as you've seen, most of them don't even know what they're protesting for. And as far as the direction or the goal of these protests, it's pure communism. The revolution must continue. There is no goal.
Jacobins, to some extent, Bolsheviks, same group of people. Certainly the Jacobins, they were students, and then the 1870 revolution, same thing. Okay.
What happened to them, though, when they went out to revolt?
What happened to who?
The Jacobins and
They eventually got their heads cut off. They eventually got their heads cut off.
Exactly.
But in the meantime, they disrupted the government such as it was. Then they took over the bureaucracy that the king had established, and Napoleon comes in. I saw who said this? Oh, it was for gosh sakes, I'm blanking on his name. A friend of mine. Who's our friend that took us to see the Mets that I was in the desert with? Scaramucci. See, Scaramucci said, he goes, Trump is the Napoleon of the culture wars. And I thought, oh, that's a great frame. That's exactly the way it is. That's exactly what's happening here. So we'll see how that plays out. But Brian, tell people where they can find you, where you want them to go. Give us all the particulars.
Sure. Please go find me on Rumble. It's called Investigate Everything with Brian O'Shea, or on dailyclout.io. And you can find me most of the time on X at Brian O'Shea SPI.
Thank you, my friend. Talk to you soon. Say hi to Naomi.
Talk to you soon. Thank you. Will do.
You got it. All right. Now we're going to bring in Rogan O'Handley, our next gentleman of Irish descent. No. DC Draino is a former entertainment lawyer turned conservative commentator. 7 million followers. He's a University of Chicago Law School graduate. You can follow him, DC_Draino. Rogan, welcome.
Thank you for having me, Dr. Drew. It's an honor. It's my first time.
Pleasure Pleasure is mine. I imagine you heard some of what was going on in the last conversation. I wonder if you have anything to lean into in terms of what we were just discussing.
Yeah, I think Brian laid out very well how this is happening, the functions, the funding, how they're mobilizing. I would probably like to explain why. And I think it addresses the point you both were discussing. Obviously, this is communism, right? And the ultimate goal is to perpetuate and realize the communist revolution. But I think in more explicit terms, this is about the 2030 census. Okay. And this is about their overall plan to take over the country by flooding this country with illegal aliens. They knew that allowing in 10 million illegal aliens under Joe Biden was going to cost them politically. But guess what? They see it as a one-way ratchet. And as long as they can keep getting more and more illegal aliens, eventually they're either going to get amnesty or they don't even need amnesty, because it all comes down to apportionment. Now, think about this. Every 10 years, they take the census, and congressional seats and electoral college votes are apportioned based on where the populations are. And as we saw in 2019, the Supreme Court ruled in a 5-4 decision with Justice Roberts saying that illegal aliens could not be excluded from the census. Think about that, okay? This quote unquote conservative Supreme Court said you have to count every human being in your jurisdiction. And guess what that leads to? Not only the 10 million that came under Biden, not only the probably 20 million that have come in over the previous 2 decades, that equates to about 30 to 40 congressional seats and electoral votes that are currently being held by Democrats that should otherwise be in the hands of Republicans, okay? And in this next census, 2030, if the numbers stay as they are right now, California is expected to lose 2 to 4 congressional seats and electoral college votes. It's the same thing. New York is expected to lose 2. Illinois is expected to lose 1. Pennsylvania is expected to lose 1. Oregon and Washington are expected to lose 1. And almost all of those are going to safe red seats. The 2032 presidential race, the Republican candidate will not even need to win Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, or Michigan. They can win the whole thing with just safe red states. Democrats know this. And after COVID, when everyone fled their states, they replaced them with illegals, right? After the COVID lockdowns. So that is what this is about. They realize, oh crap, Trump is actually deporting millions of people. Every 740,000 illegal aliens deported is a congressional seat that will flip back to Republicans. They know this, and they're trying to gum up the machine as much as possible to stall and stop him so that they can acquire more power.
And I understand you had something specific concern around the Dreamers and DACA recipients.
I mean, I think it's unconstitutional what they're doing. That was an executive order in 2012, DACA, by Obama. He launched it about 6 months before the election as a sweetener to get the Hispanic vote, which, in a great twist of irony, a lot of Hispanics actually really like Trump now, almost about 55-45 nationwide, certainly a lot more in Florida and Texas. And then when Trump tried to rescind it, the court said, no, you can't do that. So Obama can make an executive order, but Trump can't strip that executive order, which applies for almost everything. You should be able to do that. But we are under a judicial coup right now. Okay, there are more national injunctions from these leftist Marxist judges in Trump's first 3 months than there were almost in United States history combined for every president besides President Trump. National injunctions are an absolute abuse of judicial authority. There's currently a case, the CASA case, in the Supreme Court that they should rule on within the next month that will determine whether or not these courts can continue to issue these national injunctions, okay, which are being weaponized, right? So between the courts and between these riots, that's how they're planning to stop Trump's mass deportation agenda, the thing that won him the popular vote.
Excuse me. This all takes my breath away. The fact that he brought in Marines seems like a little bit of people think of it as a bit of a Rubicon. But to me, I'm not sure I agree with that. The National Guard is one thing, and I want to hear your thoughts on that. But the actual bringing in troops, that logic was laid out by President Lincoln and President Andrew Jackson a long time ago, which as the government, the president, has a sacred obligation that he swears an oath to protect government federal properties. When President Lincoln sent provisions to Fort Sumter, he did so. Now, the Southerners fired on him, but he did so because he had to. Given his legal mind and legal logic, he was obliged to re-provision these starving soldiers at Fort Sumter. Is it not the same logic that brings Marines to surround the federal buildings here in Los Angeles?
Yeah, there's a few points on that. One, the president is not allowed to mobilize the military to engage in domestic law enforcement activities unless under the Posse Comitatus Act and the Insurrection Act, there is some type of rebellion or insurrection. Based on the footage that everyone can see on X, I would say that certainly was happening in the first 2 to 3 days of these riots. There was an absolute loss of control. It was total anarchy. It was extremely violent. You saw 10 plus police cruisers on the 101 smashed to pieces. You saw cops getting hit with fireworks, rocks to the face, and LAPD was understaffed. And the president has an obligation to protect the American people when what I perceive to be Democrat leadership was allowing this to happen intentionally because they wanted to send a shot across the bow. You're not going to conduct these ICE raids without pushback in our sanctuary cities in our blue states. So I would actually like to remind people that when the Rodney King riots happened in 1992, George Bush, who was president at the time, mobilized the Marines to come in. I think it was 900 or so. And these Marines who are currently, I think, just getting to the actual inner city region of Los Angeles, they were training some crowd control techniques over the last few days, are not armed. They won't be armed when they're out there, is what we're hearing. They're going to have riot shields. I think it's sending a statement. And, a lot of people criticized President Trump during the BLM riots in 2020, saying that he didn't do enough. He didn't take strong enough action. And a lot of these governors in these blue states did not call up the National Guard. That's typically step one. The governors call it, and Trump can reinforce it. So Trump is taking a stronger approach, and I think the country is a lot more ready for it. His poll numbers have only increased. He's at the highest approval rating in the nightly polls in Rasmussen since he was inaugurated. Americans by 60 to 80%, depending on which poll you look at, support mass deportations. And I would say even a majority of probably Los Angelinos want order restored in their city. They want to be able to drive on the highways. They want to be able to go out at night. You have a curfew right now in LA. That is about as close to martial law as you can get. And that was pushed by the Democrat mayor. Okay, that's how bad it is. Yeah. So I support Trump also sending a shot across the bow that we are going to conduct these ICE raids. And if you are going to allow your people to respond violently, we're going to bring in the troops to restore order.
And then before I go to the break, Caleb, I want you to tell me what you mean by that banner you put up for me to comment on. But before you do, Elon Musk gave one of the greatest descriptions. I almost thought it was AI. I wasn't even sure it was him, but it was such a great comment about Governor Newsom. He was going, well, Governor, he goes, you know what? Governor Newsom was like the Joker taking over Gotham City. It's like complete lawlessness. He's the Joker. He's the Joker sitting in the governor's office, allowing absolute pandemonium to unleash. And I thought, oh God, that's great. It's exactly what the Joker was. It's this. And I remember when that film came out, my kids were sort of like high school age or college. And I was like, do you understand what they're implying by this? I don't. We're glorifying that. Well, now we got a governor that is just like the Joker in Batman. It really is rather incredible. But I love that frame. Is he not that?
He's exactly that. And I think LA is the gauntlet. It's the litmus test. And how President Trump responds here is going to dictate how the next 3.5 years will go with his mass deportation agenda. So obviously a lot of that funding is tied up in the big, beautiful bill. to get more ICE agents and immigration judges and all that. But if Trump shows strength here, which he has thus far, if he continues to show strength, which we are hearing that troops are going to be there for 60 days, and he continues the deportations, that's the key. He has to continue these ICE deportations. It will break the will of these violent resistors, many of which are illegal aliens. The riots will be quelled, and the deportation agenda can continue, and the rule of law can be established. Mind you, they arrested a U.S. president 4 times while he was running for re-election, and they want to talk about authoritarianism. Okay, this guy won the popular vote. He is enforcing the laws on the books, which have not been done in decades when it comes to immigration. So they can deal with it, or they can go to federal prison.
Caleb, what was the comment you wanted to make here?
Yeah, I'm curious if you think that this is being allowed as a giant ploy to usher in Palantir. It seems like the timing is very strange. So it's Palantir or Palantir, however people want to pronounce it, it's kind of like the new big brother organization. It's like a corporation that they're trying to combine and consolidate everybody's records. Basically what a lot of people are saying, including Naomi Wolf, I believe, is warning about this, about they prey on people's fears in times of unrest to then say the only way that you can get relief and stop this is if you let us track everything you do, kind of like what they did with the Patriot Act. They try to usher something in. They have a big bad event and they usher ways in that they can control us, but then they never give that power back, as you can see with the Patriot Act right now. And I found the timing to be very interesting that they announced, hey, Trump may be wanting to work with Palantir, and then all of a sudden all of this unrest starts happening. Do you see any connections there? Do you think that the timing is suspicious?
I need more exclamation on Palantir too. Go ahead, Rogan, and then we'll go to break.
Yeah, I've seen people talking about Palantir, and I'm not as up to speed as others on that. I'm a firm believer in the constitutional right to privacy and the Fourth Amendment protection against unreasonable search and seizure. I am highly opposed to the Patriot Act at this point. I would not advocate for any new type of surveillance or government authorities, because as we saw with the Patriot Act, they weaponized that to not only spy on U.S. citizens, they spied on the United States President, Trump, right? They got the secret FISA warrant in 2016 under James Comey and Brennan and Obama and Biden, and they wiretapped the sitting U.S. president. So I am absolutely against any further encroachment of our civil liberties, even in the face of trying to surveil this kind of leftist uprising. I think we have more than enough weapons already in our disposal to address what's going on. And I hope that the DOJ arrests these financiers, the orchestrators, the puppeteers, and sends a message that it's not going to be like it was in 2020. We're taking everyone down. So I am firmly against any type of mass surveillance program that would be justified by these riots.
We are going to take a quick break. We are here with DC Draino. You can follow him on X, DC_Draino, just like the products, spelled the same way. And amongst other things, we get back, I want to talk about the popularity of Marxism. I want to talk about getting at the funding sources and why we can't take more legal action against the people who are actually fomenting all of this. Back with more after this. What's so special about Paleo Valley's grass-fed and finished bone broth and superfood bars? Well, everything. All are delicious, high in nutrients, low in calories, and contain nothing artificial. Co-founder Autumn Smith on what goes into every superfood bar.
So we have bone broth protein powder, and then we've added other superfoods, cashew butter, we have spirulina in there, acerola, broccoli powder, kale, blueberries. And so it really is kind of just an infusion of superfoods with every bite.
And then there's the extraordinary bone broth protein made with an ancestral approach that boosts our collagen intake.
Collagen is something that's gone by the wayside in our modern diet because we don't eat nose to tail anymore, but it was something we ate a lot of, and it has so many benefits. So if you have sagging skin, joint pain, gut issues, your decreased bone mineral density, slow to heal your wounds, slow recovery, these are all things that collagen can dramatically improve. If we're not giving our body the building blocks to produce it. We just age more rapidly. It also improves sleep, improves blood sugar control. So it's essentially like the Swiss Army knife of healthy aging.
Like I said, Paleo Valley's bone broth is something special. Make Paleo Valley part of your longevity regimen. Go to drdrew.com/Paleo Valley for 20% off when you subscribe and 15% off your first order. That is drdrew.com/Paleo Valley. The Wellness Company knows that taking charge of your family's healthcare is a top priority, and that's why they're constantly innovating to deliver the products and services to help you be rationally ready. Be sure to have the medical kit for kids on hand, whether you're a parent or grandparent. It treats 20 childhood conditions, including nausea and vomiting, allergies, asthma, inflammatory illnesses, even bioterror, God forbid. Listen, croup, ear infections, lice, it's all available in the pediatric emergency kit. You can also order the kids kit with an EpiPen should your child be at risk of anaphylaxis. And those EpiPens are carefully sourced and well priced relative to other EpiPens in the market. All 7 kits, each customized for a different purpose, come with a telemedicine consultation and a guidebook. Skip the scramble to an urgent care waiting room full of sick people and expense, or a pharmacy where there's no guarantee they'll have what you need. Go to drdrew.com/TWC for 10% off any medical emergency kit, or the supplements for that matter. That again is drdrew.com/TWC.
And that's just trouble in a relationship.
Sean, who are you? Like Dr. Drew all of a sudden?
And a reminder, when times are challenging, I'll be very happy to have on hand the kits like this. This is the big boy kit from the Wellness Company. Comes in a very sturdy package. What do they call the field emergency kit? We have broken that out a number of times. And when there are riots and unrest and you don't want to go outside, or your CVS is burning down, believe me, you are very happy to have medication to protect your family should you need it. Also, I want to remind everybody to go to V-Shred MD to get these products. I've been to a great length to produce these and source these and make them reasonably priced. It is V-Shred MD, the NR Boost and the Senesync. I recommend it every day with your Fatty 15. And then get ready for summer with a supply of active skin repair. The hydrogel spray, keep it around the house, adults, kids. The hydrogel and spray to have around the house. Adult kids and little babies can use the spray or hydrogel. And as you know, our granddaughter Eloise has become a new spokesmodel for this, the active skin repair. There she is with hers. They've been using it on her before we ever found out about active skin repair. Key ingredient, as I said, is hypochlorous acid. It's a clinically proven antimicrobial. It's used in hospital. It soothes and heals irritated skin. It's been used in burns and complicated wounds. In diaper rash, it's good for that. It's good for, Eloise used it on her baby acne. Active skin repair also works on blemishes, cuts, burns, rashes, and it works on your dog's hot spots as well. Emily's been using it on her dog, and the founder, Justin Gardner, called the product the WD-40 of skin repair. I think that's right. They are our partners, and at Active Skin Repair, they also make a hyaluronic hydrating serum, which I use daily. And when I go without my skin product, it quickly reverts to flaky and dry. Go to drdrew.com/skin repair for 20% off, what is already a great price. That is drdrew.com/skin repair for 20% off. All right, we are talking to DC Draino. You can follow him on X, DC_Draino, also known as Rogan O'Handley. He is an attorney, and he's been a wonderful source of information on what is a confusing situation. But my first question really is sort of it's just sort of a rhetorical question in a way. But Marxism was sort of dead and gone. I mean, it had been shown as a flawed philosophy given, it just doesn't apply, it doesn't work. It doesn't work and certainly doesn't apply to modern economies. My understanding is that a bunch of crestfallen Marxists tried to figure out a way to reignite interest in Marxism and created the whole critical theory movement, which is that everything is subjective and nothing is real, and they found a way back into certainly the academic discourse. But how could Marxism, or why is it so popular in the face of a clear historical record of one failure after another?
Yeah, it's weaponized empathy at this point, right? They kind of realize the economic Marxist argument doesn't really play that well in America because things are pretty prosperous in this country. The American dream is alive and well again under President Trump, and people generally, have roofs over their heads and food on the plate. But so they had to come up with a new tactic, and it's this cultural Marxist, this critical race theory, dividing us along immutable characteristics, not economic class. And that's been going on for a few decades. It kind of peaked a little bit in the 70s and 80s, went back into remission, and it's back in its heyday. But I would say it's already peaked and we're already on the downslope. DEI is crumbling. Men and women's sports is being pushed back on. Even Simone Biles posted a tweet saying she doesn't necessarily agree with it. So we are kind of cleaning up the mess. It got out of control, and it took, Obama was kind of the launch pad for the next wave of critical race theory. He divided this country racially. Race relations have never been worse. They were actually getting a lot better before him, and so it's an entire kind of cottage industry. But as much as Marxism has been proven time and time again that it just leads to disastrous and violent results, what hasn't gone into remission is the human nature to amass power. Tyrants still exist, and this is a very proven method to gain power, to gain totalitarianism. And a lot of the people running this are not actually the people truly running it, right? We see, the Nancy Pelosi's, the Obamas, the Bernie Sanders. It's the big money people that funded them, and those guys didn't get to become, billionaires multiple times over by being, unambitious. And I think once you're, kind of at that level, if you're like a Bill Gates, you say, wow, what can I do now? Oh, let me go, vaccinate people all across the world with, drugs that don't really work that well. So this is just kind of a hobby for power hungry people.
Do they feel guilty for all the power they've amassed, that they've done it that they feel like they've done it at the expense of other people? Is it the hubris? I just don't understand it. So that's one side of my question. The other side is, why isn't the legal system going after the people that are the actually responsible party for some of the damage being done?
Well, unfortunately, the legal system is filled with a lot of Marxists themselves. The 2020 election, I will keep my opinions. I don't know what networks this is airing on, but they used that moment to install hundreds of federal judges who are far left, that come from law schools that have been pushing this stuff for decades now, and then they're starting to bear fruit. We're seeing it. They're Marxists in black robes, and this is the Obama movement. Obama stayed in D.C. after he left office. He said, I always wanted to be someone just behind the scenes with the earpiece, pulling the strings. And we basically got Obama's third term. And so, do they feel bad? No, I think a lot of these people, and envy is a human emotion. It's a dark one. Communism, I've kind of thought about this. It goes against almost all of the 10 commandments. It's fundamentally evil. I would say it's derived from Satanism, but thou shalt not covet, thy neighbor and their goods. Thou shalt only have, one God. Communists don't believe in God. They believe in the government controlling you. Husband and wife, they want to destroy the family unit. So it's I think it's just satanic. I think a lot of this is just satanic. And they want to destroy everything that God made beautiful in our world. The family unit, doing good, being charitable, being generous. They just want to get rid of all that, is what I think it boils down to at its root.
Well, I worry about the impulse, as you do. I've noticed, and I was talking to Alex Villanueva, the former sheriff of Los Angeles, yesterday, and he confirmed something that I was highly suspicious of, that there are a group of anarchists, primarily males, who are running around. They're probably, I don't know if they're directly associated with Antifa or they are Antifa or they're adjacent to Antifa. But when I go out and I work with homeless, I always there's drug addicts, they're seriously mentally ill, and then there are these sociopaths. They're all the same guy. And it's diagnostic for sociopathy in the sense that they are garbed in the same manner in every single case. They have a backpack. They're 35-year-old male with a backpack and a skateboard. That is a sociopath, and that is a violent anarchist. And they usually have weird sort of slogans around their tents. These are the guys we want to be following. I don't understand why, and they're very violent. They're very aggressive. Do people not understand that that's what we're getting into here? That's who these people are. That this is not a benign group. These are people with really darkness in their hearts.
Well, it's been a very good return on investment for George Soros to fund and get elected a lot of these, what we call Soros DAs, these kind of woke prosecutors who do not go after these low-level crimes, and they're constantly giving these hat tips and these nods to these leftist, anarchists, these leftist Marxists, that if you go around and you're robbing stores and you're attacking Trump supporters and you're burning down big corporations and building, we're not going to go after you. Or if we do, we're going to give you just a gentle slap on the wrist. And not only that, we're going to give you, free housing, free food. They're the foot soldiers. These are effectively the brown shirts of the modern Marxist movement here in America. And Antifa is the organized paramilitary version. And what they're used for is to break up any pro-Trump, pro-America street rallies. And you see that in Portland and California, all along the coast. So, those are the hotbeds. That's what they want for America. What is happening to LA is what Kamala was going to do to all of America. And it is what Gavin Newsom will do to all of America if he is elected president in 2028. And make no mistake, that is the plan. And so this, in my opinion, is do or die for this country. If Trump does not deport 10 million illegal aliens, at least by the end of his term, America could be finished. Because if Democrats are allowed to get into power, what do you think they're going to do first thing? Boom, that border's opening up right again. And then you're going to have another 10, maybe more, maybe 20 million illegal aliens come in this time. And then we're done. We're cooked as a country. So this is existential. And if Trump is able to do these mass deportations, we'll save America for at least another few decades. If he isn't, then we're done. I hate to say it. It's only a matter of time after that until we implode into just absolute chaos across the country.
What do you imagine is going on in Gavin Newsom's mind? What is he thinking? He's not making sense anymore. It's hard to even track when he talks. But what? How would he justify this? What would he say? What is his? Does he not have thoughts about what he's really doing? I'm so confused.
He works as part of the team, right? He's very connected with the Democrat elites. He's one of them. His goal is to stand defiantly against these mass deportations, against the Trump agenda, and do so in a way that still maintains some legitimacy as a governor, some legitimacy that you don't actually support violent riots and protests. So it's a very fine line he's trying to walk between, hey, violence is bad, but also this is Trump's fault. He's enforcing the law in California, and he's to blame for all this. But one thing I've really noticed about Gavin Newsom and all this, he is slimy. He is a slimy liar every day. You didn't know that? I've always known that, but the slime level is so much worse now, because when he's actually under a microscope, he lies about Trump calling him. They talked for 15 minutes. Trump posts a screenshot.
Yeah.
I mean, and he's like, Trump never called me. And then he's saying that what Trump is doing with the National Guard is unconstitutional. It's in the Constitution. It's in multiple different federal laws. He's so slimy that I'm like, wow, this guy is just really repulsive with what he's been doing.
Well, that's why I sit there and go, what does he imagine he's doing? I mean, he goes to bed at night. What is he thinking? There's so many things that are confusing me. I'm confused. Jimmy Kimmel's monologue last night was confusing to me. When he was, talking about Trump was deranged and ill, and this is a horrible thing. And I thought that logic suggests that whenever there's any unlawful activity, you don't bring in law enforcement because law enforcement makes unlawful activity worse. Which, of course, yes. Where there's unlawful activity, magically law enforcement tends to be there, but they're not causing the unlawful activity. And I worked in a psychiatric hospital for decades. And I'm going to tell you, when really aggressive, there's a meme popping up into our screen. When really aggressive behavior develops, show of force de-escalates. Show of force, massive shows of force. We take 30 of our staff and surround the violent patient. And they settle down and they feel much better. And we take care of them then. But this idea that you just let it run amok is anathema. Forget to just civilization. It's anathema to everything that's real about the human experience. So the human experience is just somehow no longer at issue. I guess that's part of communism. It has to deny human instincts entirely.
They're taking their best shot. They've lost all forms of federal government power. They don't have the Senate, the House, the White House, most of the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court, most of the time, they don't have them. Amy Coney Barrett has been an absolute disappointment. But they have no forms of institutional power in the federal government, and they're resorting to violence. Violence is a weapon of the weak. It's people with power don't have to resort to violence. They can just make things happen. And so this is them lashing out. This is the final battle. I'm telling you, President Trump has gone through the gauntlet for 9 years of dealing with this. They indicted him and arrested him 4 times. He got shot in the head and he turned we are on a very blessed path. This is, in my opinion, a biblical moment. It really is. I don't know why they stopped right in the Bible, because we are living through a very biblical time. This is the most powerful evil force that has ever tried to take over the planet. It's not just in America. It's a lot worse in Europe, what's going on with the open borders and the EU tyranny. And, they're trying to push World War III. So I know it's a lot. But I want to give people some hope. We're winning.
Yeah, what do you predict?
I predict that we win. I really do. And that's why I left my career as an entertainment lawyer in 2016. I said, I got to go fight back. The only method we had was social media to get our voices out there. Now you can't, walk 10 feet down the road without a MAGA influencer appearing. They're everywhere, right? And so I wanted other people to join that fight. And with X, with free speech on X, with a lot better free speech on Instagram and Facebook, with a lot cleaner elections in a lot of swing states, and I think even more so to come once the DOJ starts cracking down on some of these election fraud schemes in deep blue states, with the ability to circulate the truth, these videos about the riots, right? Like, we could barely post the truth about BLM in 2020. We certainly couldn't go into the streets because of the COVID lockdowns, but social media was highly censored. So conservatives were seeing, but regular people weren't. It's a much different battlefield now. Not only are people really upset over what happened in the last 4 years, but there's a lot more truth being circulated and has much wider reach on social media. So you're seeing Trump's poll numbers. They're stellar. They're stellar. Okay, Democrats, this was a failed effort. It worked for them in 2020. It worked, frankly. Trump was not in power after that, and for reasons again I won't discuss. I don't know where this is airing. Wasn't a very good election in terms of ethics and legality. But they're going back to the old playbook, and I think it's failing. It really is. And if it fails in California, it's a cakewalk everywhere else. All you have is Portland and Oregon. You got Seattle. You got Chicago. New York City is actually pretty good. Mayor Adams is kissing Trump's butt because he's, trying to get out of that federal investigation that Biden launched at him. DC's under control of House rule. So if we can defeat them in LA, and we already are, and we will, and continue these mass deportations, we will steamroll Democrats in 26 and 2030. What we are learning is that when you show strength in doing what people voted you in power to do, it grows your base. That's why Florida went from a 1-point red state to a 20-point red state under Governor DeSantis. When you show strength, people will mobilize everyone they know to go out and vote for you. And I think that's what's going to happen in 2026.
So you were in the entertainment business, and the sort of ideas I mentioned, Jimmy, and the other things that are flying around the entertainment business are so disconnected from reality. There's a hubris and a grandiosity, and every time they speak publicly as though because you're an actor, I should give a shit about your opinion. But you're entitled to your opinion. What I've noticed, for instance, lately is that I offer like a medical opinion or opinion about mental health stuff, and I get censored and screamed down and stuff like that. That is not. I'm entitled to my opinion. And my opinions are, they're based in something a little more than just random ideas of my own. But in the entertainment side, it's all just sort of, typically uneducated and just sort of, it's I know best, and it's a group think. What's happening over there? I mean, you have to deal with all those folks. What is your sort of assessment of what's going on?
Well, I learned very quickly after Trump won that espousing opinion, anything to the right of communism, made you a fascist and you would get blackballed. So I had to stay quiet until I ultimately left and moved to Florida and, pursued DC Draino full time. And, but a lot of these actors, I mean, you live in California, a lot of people watching this live in California. They're leftists, not only because that's just what they believe, but also because that's what the people that largely run Hollywood believe. It's a leftist movement.
Hang
They're very
on now. So
connected with Democrats.
I would sort of describe myself. I thought I was well left of center, and I'm sympathetic to those ideas. This is like a perception of reality that is off. It's like their reality testing is impaired in some way. Maybe it's because they live in a zero gravity world. Well, people make lots of money for doing essentially nothing. They've never had real jobs, many of them. That's what I've noticed. That I can tell by when they're really obnoxious that, oh, you haven't had a job. You never worked in the world. You never had somebody to tell you to shut the F up. But is it that, and fueled by some of these ideas that I'm sympathetic to, but that they have no experience in reality with which to measure them?
To be honest, it's tough for me to get in their minds. I just see common sense everywhere I look, and right and wrong, and up and down, and left and right. And a lot of these people's opinions, I think, are skewed by legacy media. Right. If you're watching the news, the people that watch the news the most and go on the internet for news the least are older folks and 70 plus, and those are Trump's worst numbers, right? Which is kind of unusual because Republicans usually do well with senior citizens and older voters. But I think the real split now is the more you're on the internet, the more you can get the truth. And I think there is a slow awakening. I know a good amount of Hollywood celebrities that people know, popular names who, follow me or I've communicated with, who are just like, hey, I just got to keep it quiet, right? They don't want to upset the powers that be. And I know for a fact, a lot of the people that work in Hollywood behind the camera generally lean conservative because those are people who are actually working real jobs, right? It's a very tough job at some points, long days. But it's these actors. But you know what it is too? Telling, and I'm sure Brian has a lot more information on this. Is it's the people funding them. Okay, as a influencer on social media, I'm offered money for all different types of things, and it's advertising products or advocating for specific viewpoints, or as we saw with Kamala, paying for endorsements, right? Beyonce, Megan Thee Stallion, a bunch of these famous singers and actresses got paid to support Hollywood people. So if these people are literally paid to read off a page and say it, right? That's what an actor is. You read what someone else wrote and you pretend to be someone else, and they do it for money. Why not do that with politics, right? And this was the old way that you worked for many years, for many decades. The Marxist movement infiltrated Hollywood, and it's tried before. Reagan was a big defender against the communist movement in Hollywood, and it's certainly had a resurgence after him. But when he was in charge of SAG, but they get paid to say these talking points, and the laws do not require them to disclose that they're being paid. It's one of the few exceptions in the FEC because it's considered free speech.
Interesting. Well, it is.
Wait, you understand that, though?
Understand what?
That the Hollywood is very left because they're all you have to be in order to get a job.
No, I understand that. That's the way it is now. But what is it?
Especially during the pandemic, it's like you weren't allowed to say anything against it.
They're true believers, a lot of them, and I'm wondering what the thinking is. It's odd, and why we should care. I mean, look, there's this thing that happened at the turn of the 20th century. This new technology came in we call celluloid and film, and people started performing in front of the film as opposed to on the stage. But it was always still stage actors were still the top of the heap. These carefully trained professionals. And now it's just a bunch of people in front of cameras like you and me, and some of them kind of know how to act, and some of them don't. And then it's on television, it's it's on platforms, it's all over the place. And we're still listening to these people.
You don't need an agent or a manager anymore.
Yeah, what are we doing? Then let them get on these kinds of programs and defend themselves and share their thoughts. Let's see what's going on. I mean, to be fair, some of them do, and that's fine. But they aren't challenged very often, and that's. It's like it's I don't know. It's odd that we would listen to them. It seems to me it's just very, very odd. I
think their influence has gone down drastically in the last probably 5 to 10 years. Yeah.
So, did you ever imagine back before 2016 that we'd be sitting here? To me, it's shocking that we are, and COVID sort of put rocket fuel on all this for me. So many astonishing revelations, but it sort of, revealed some truths that I was ignorant to. And it, continues to compel me to kind of talk and to try to defend other people's right to talk. But isn't this a shock that here we are sitting here doing this in 2025? It's shocking.
We are the resistance movement. I mean, I talk to people about this. I say, the founding fathers of this country, we revere them. They're heroes. They were regular people going through their lives. They weren't born with a pamphlet of what their life was going to be. They didn't know this great moment would happen in their role. They would step up, but almost all of them did what people like you and me and tens of thousands of others are doing. They're leaving their normal careers, their comforts, the approval of polite society, and they're going to raise their voices and stand up for what they believe in. And I frankly don't think we're going to get into a revolutionary war. I think we caught this early enough. But, the American people are slow to move, but once they do rise, they are an unstoppable force. And I do think we've hit critical mass, that they can't put this genie back in the bottle. But none of us wanted to do this. I just want to go be on a farm and, hang out with my family and watch the horses walk around. But we have to fight. And it's because people didn't fight for so long that we're left with this mess. But again, I think we have crossed the Rubicon. I think we have tilted it over towards the downhill, where now we have the momentum. We have full control of the American government and free speech on social media, and this movement is growing every single day.
It's interesting that when my wife Susan and Caleb first started running a camera in here, it was 2020, and it was really in response to COVID, and I was just trying to help people understand, see through the craziness of what the media was representing. And I kept saying then, I said, we're like the French underground here. This is the French underground. We dare to say things that are dangerous that people are going to come after. And I kept saying that over and over. I feel like the French underground. It's very odd. And that morphed into, oh my God, I have to defend the First Amendment. This is a shock. Yeah. But I must speak up and I must defend other people's right to that speech. And here we are still. So I agree with what you're saying wholeheartedly. And I appreciate you being here. Where would you like people to find you?
Yeah, DC Draino on all the platforms. I'm mostly on Instagram and X. So in Truth Social. So join the fight. If you're looking for a sign to start posting on an account, we all started with 0 followers at some point. I just one night said, I'm going to start a meme account. And, now I've had dinner with President Trump. I mean, it's just because I decided to start talking about this publicly. So I hope everyone watching does their part and, join the fight.
Stay in touch. Talk to you soon.
Thank you, Dr. Drew.
You got it.
So we want to bring Brian back.
Yes, I heard. Before you bring Brian back, Taylor quietly slipped something in there in the lower third, where the HHS, I think it was the Vaccine Safety Committee.
The Advisory Committee for Immunization Practices. Probably about 30, 40 minutes ago, Secretary Kennedy announced he kicked out the 17 current members, I believe, a day or two ago.
Yep.
And today he announced, I believe it was 8 new ones. And that includes Dr. Martin Kulldorff and Dr. Robert Malone. I believe both of them have been on the show.
Yep, that's right. And it's interesting. That's it.
Funny.
Here's, let's see who else. I hope there are good scientists in there. I really do. He really has an obligation to do that. I can't see it now. Epoch Health won't let me see it because Emily sent me an email saying, whoa, these names. Michael A. Ross, Vicky Pebsworth, James Pagno, Cody Messner. I don't know some of these people. But again, this is not an easy job. This is reading science formally and carefully. I'm hoping Vinay Prasad is in there with this, or at least has some sort of oversight. So that'll be interesting to see how this all plays out. It definitely needed a new blood in there. Okay, well that's interesting.
Brian O'Shea needs to come.
Yes, Kelly Victor was quipping to me. It looks like Malone's going to be an ACIP member, and we all laughed at her. That was about 2 hours ago.
Brian has something to say about that, by the way.
Brian, you have some follow-up comment for us. I appreciate you coming back in.
Wait, your audio.
So
here he is.
Yep.
Go ahead.
Okay, can you hear me now?
We got you. We do.
Okay, I'm not going to say a thing about Robert Malone, I promised. So that's...
Why? You're allowed.
No, I'll save that for my own show.
Didn't you hear me giggle when they said that? It's ironic, right, Drew?
I have
Didn't he help create mRNA?
He claimed that. He claimed that he did. He lays claim to that. I guess we have a more formal way of saying it. I know Robert Malone. I've met Robert Malone. He's a nice guy, but I'm staying out of the controversies.
But didn't he also say later, we had him on the show,
Susan, I'm staying out of the controversy.
It wasn't a great thing.
When I say out of the controversy, I mean out of the controversy, okay?
Right.
So
I thought he fell on his sword a little bit.
So go ahead and if you want to hear more, go to Brian O'Shea's Investigate Everything. So go ahead.
Which he's doing tonight at 9 p.m. Eastern, correct?
8 or 9 p.m. I'm kind of flexible. I have Marshall's training to attend at the ACLU online at 8, so I might have to bump it to 9.
Nice. I'd love to hear more. You got to report on that all over the push that out. Push it
absolutely.
out. I'll retweet it. Yeah. All right. So what's going on?
Well, what do you want to know? I've got so much.
You had some follow up to what we were talking about, DC Draino. Just start there.
Oh, yeah. Well, and I agree with DC Draino that we're definitely winning, but I think this is just another battle in a war that will go on forever because the communists will never stop. Forever. I think wars go on forever. Battles are won and lost, but they're not stopping. And the thing is, like the Belt and Road by the Chinese Communist Party, their toxic financing plan, that continues to spread. of the 195 countries, I think, in the world, 150 of them belong to the Belt and Road. It's called encirclement in the game of Go.
I get China, and I get their totalitarian impulses and how the CCP works and the People's Liberation Army and all. What I don't get is, why is there always a totalitarian impulse in the human systems? It seems like freedom is such a much more natural, healthy impulse for human beings. Where does this? Well, I'm so shocked to see it come back so fiercely after the experiences with it in the 20th century.
I think if in the case of Xi Jinping, if you think about his life, he was actually deemed as and labeled as what they call black class back in the Mao era and beyond. Black class is bad. They couldn't do race because they were all the same race, so they established social classes. Black class is red, black class is good, red class is bad. So he was actually labeled because his father was high up in the party, and he had to go to the work camps and everything. So where does the impulse come from? I think it's the same impulse that drives people in lower income areas to join violent gangs or to join terrorist groups in certain countries. There's two ways to freedom for them: at the very, very top or dead.
So it is all a freedom impulse. It just gets distorted in this authoritarian fashion. That's interesting. So it's freedom by, it's gross though. It's freedom by controlling other people. Okay, so
that's what I see it as,
yeah, that makes sense. Freedom by controlling other people. That gives me my freedom as opposed to granting freedom to others. Wow.
So talk about June 14th.
Yeah, June 14th. What's going to happen there? What is that?
Well, what's going to happen is if you go to, I think it's nokings.org. I had it up here a second ago, sorry. But basically, nokings.org.
I went there. And by the way, the No Kings, isn't those kings using, what's that famous artist name who does the I've got the hat with the crown on it, Susan. I love him so much.
What?
The kid that makes the crowns, that was a protege of Andy Warhol. Anyway, it looks to me like they're using his art without his family or his consent. It's odd.
Isn't it
to me.
mobilize.us or something?
Yeah. So the way it's, the labels change, but the game stays the same. So before it used to be Action Network. Now it's mobilize.us. So that is the CRM. That's the app. And Zero Hedge, I believe, covered it to where they were speculating that Indivisible, based on the comments of Miss Walton, helped form the No Kings movement. But if you go to nokings.org, and I think this is breaking, I think I just found this out.
They have accessible restrooms.
Go ahead. Keep going, please.
But if you scroll to the bottom of nokings.org on their any of their pages, but I think on the trainings page, you'll see, on their Mobilize page for No Kings, you'll see that Mobilize comes right out, and they have the statement that says, Indivisible is managing data and communications with participants. And this is on the No Kings Mobilize site. So that's confirmed now. They are definitely affiliated. And again, Indivisible, they were behind all the Tesla takedown activities. So this is the exact same pattern that we saw with groups such as Ruth Sent Us and everything. And it's the same thing every time. And it's the same actors. It's the environmentalists. It's people that have nothing to do with so-called immigration. So this is just one big network. I think DC Draino said it great. It's kind of like the brown shirts. These people are just activated by whoever's behind it, and I don't know who that is yet. I'm more focused on the logistics so we can disrupt those. But they just get activated for almost anything. And there's more coming. They tell you, they have a calendar. And so I would recommend that everyone go to two places. Keep your eye on Mobilize, okay, because they announce all of these things. And then go to Blue Sky. X is great, Getter's great. These are great places to get our voices out. But have you noticed that there are very few left-wing voices? There's none on Getter, but there's very few on X anymore. But if you go to Blue Sky, they're in there talking as if they're, in a skiff, and they're saying it all. As a matter of fact, there's a group called 5051. These seem to be the people, based on Blue Sky postings, that are alerting the communities to the ICE raids. Pay attention, Kash Patel, because they're putting it out on Blue Sky. Like, hey, residents of this town in Ohio, ICE raids imminent in the next hour. They're putting it out there. So that's what I'd recommend to people, to stay in front of these things.
Interesting. I'm re-downloading the Blue Sky app. I found it so boring, but now it sounds kind of interesting. So
Harvey Weinstein was just
source
convicted.
Of intelligence.
I saw it on there. I just saw that on there.
Yeah, you'll learn.
You saw what now?
You'll learn nothing.
Harvey Weinstein was just convicted. Anyways.
Harvey Weinstein was convicted of what?
Of sexual assault.
It seems like it was more than that.
He was just convicted. Anyways, but to me, it seems like this should be illegal, if it's causing this kind of trauma or turmoil I just don't see how.
That's a tough one.
Back to what I was asking him. Why aren't people going after the people that are funding all this stuff that's causing so much damage? I don't understand that, but I don't know.
I think that's what we need to do. I will say Josh Hawley did send he sent a letter to, I believe it was the big one out in California, about, requesting they preserve their records as far back as November 2024, and that they, I'm sorry, let me just see who it was, and that they, make all these things available to the Senate. So that's a good move. I'm glad to see it. But I think what just the normal, I always try to give like what people can do. And DC Draino is right. You have to get out there. You have to do things, even if it's just putting stuff out on X. What I like to do is, especially when I'm in Salem, Massachusetts, is go take a walk and talk to people. I recommend bringing a cute dog with you because people are more likely to talk to you. We have Loki. And so I was talking to a nice lady today, and it turned into politics, and I keep your cool. Don't get aggravated because you won't get any intel. And so she actually said to me, and this is a highly educated woman in the healthcare industry. She actually said to me, well, I think that the legacy media, not legacy, like NBC and all them, I think they mean well, but sometimes they just get it wrong. And I said, well, NBC has had a memorandum of cooperation with Xinhua Newsnet since 2015. So I don't know if that's true. And then she's like, yeah, but I think Fox News lies. I said, well, here's another thing. Most conservatives don't watch Fox News. We don't trust it since Tucker left. So getting out there and talking to them and getting in their heads, it really lets you figure out how they're thinking. So when, patriots and they mean well are calling random strangers on X Marxists and traitors and all that, they're probably confused. They're probably saying, what the hell are they talking about? And then when you guys were talking about Hollywood, I have I played an extra in a couple of the Mailer productions. Our good friend John Buffalo Mailer, the youngest son of Norman Mailer, the writer. So I'm in that world a third of the time. And I agree. They're in that reality. But I will say this. All they see is legacy media. They've never heard of Substack. They've never heard of Rumble. So what I tell people is don't try to convince them you're right. Shoot a cool video of, shooting at a bear with a 12 gauge, put it on Rumble and send them the link, and then they'll discover Rumble.
Interesting. There you go. I'm looking at Blue Sky now. It's
we do have an official Dr. Drew Blue Sky. We just never use it.
Yeah, it's interesting. I agree with Brian. It's worth. You got to get everyone's got to get to balance. That's the goal. Balance in all our thinking and in our news sources. I agree with them. I agree with that.
I do want to ask
Susan,
Brian,
is there anything else
Well, I wanted to ask Brian, because he wasn't here, or he wasn't on the show whenever we were talking about the Palantir stuff. I'm curious if you have any thoughts about that and about how this seems oddly timed to have a lot of chaos, similar to what happened with 9/11. Then they usher in the Patriot Act. That's my fear, is that this is all interestingly timed.
I think we need to get a little more. Well, Palantir is just a company. What are we talking about here?
I've been following Palantir's stuff for a pretty long time, and they've just kind of exploded recently into the public eye because of the announcements with Trump saying, oh, yeah, he might want to work with them. But it is really kind of like a corporate version of Big Brother. It's like a corporate NSA in a way, and they want to go in and compile all of our records. I think the ultimate plan is a national ID, because they're going to say, well, how are we going to keep, violent criminals coming through any of our borders? We need a national ID. How are we going to, well, you already have a national ID. You have driver's license. So why not just take this one little extra step and let us, count everybody? That's the only way to secure elections, guys, is if we have a national ID. And I'm afraid that's what this is all going to. And I'm kind of more afraid that it's not bad enough yet. They need to make things worse and have more chaos so that people are just begging for national ID. And so they're begging for all the records.
Caleb, I tend to agree with you. I don't think it's planned. I was in the government for a long time as a contractor, but for 3 decades almost. And I can say the US government has trouble organizing a lot across agencies. But I will say they never miss a good opportunity to test something out or to use something to push an agenda. And you are correct in a way. I don't know if it's associated with Palantir. And honestly, I don't know much about Palantir. I know who they are, the controversies around them. But I will say I was a little shocked when Kristi Noem was all of a sudden talking about everyone needs to get a real ID by a certain day. And I'm like, why? And so I could see these riots being used.
You can't fly without it.
Yeah.
You can't fly without it. You can't move around. It's already done. It's most people have them. I have one. I mean, that's. I know you don't have one. But
I can imagine in the next year.
Your passport?
Yeah, you should be able to. And the thing is, and I think should be a constitutional challenge there. But the other thing that I fear is that there's going to be a government contract with Clear. I guarantee it, about international travel in this country. And I should let people know that Clear, which is that fast pass that you use for international travel, takes all your biometrics. Their chief of staff during COVID was also Mayor Cuomo's scheduler. And they also are the people behind the, it's not the Gotham pass, but it's whatever COVID pass that New York had. And that was being run by Clear, while Cuomo's scheduler was the chief of staff over there at Clear. So I would keep an eye on that if I were people. And definitely, lawyers get out there and challenge all of these things.
And listen, even without Clear, your biometrics, if you go in and out of the country, they use your biometrics when you come in and out. That's what they're using to bring you in and out. So Clear is just a little piece of that. All right. Well,
I love Clear.
Karen Burns, yes, passport and a regular license. I was thinking that while we were talking, but I already have I'm all signed up for whatever. Listen, the only reason I would be much more aggressive about saying, what's the big deal? The Clear, the what do you call it? The safe, whatever. But I learned my lesson with the Patriot Act, because with the Patriot Act, I was like, oh, come on, I got nothing to hide. Who cares? They need our help. Let's get in there. Be a good patriot. I was wrong. And so that very much changed how I think about these things. So,
well, I would say this, Dr. Drew, you're spot on, because as a former private investigator and an intel collector, I had competitive intelligence, especially where I was going after other companies' secrets for my clients. So many people would say, oh, you do that? Well, I have nothing to hide. Well, you have no idea what I'm looking for. And you might not have anything to hide, but by making it open to me, you might be helping me accomplish my mission.
Interesting. I know through having been in many, many malpractice situations, you can always find something that somebody can make an issue of, whatever. Always something. There's always something. So there is that as well. And but I trusted my government. COVID blew all that up. I had really significant trust in, I wouldn't say centralized authority. Maybe that's why I'd be thinking about in terms of being empathic towards those people that still like centralized authority. I certainly didn't object to it until it went wacko, in my opinion, and now I object to it in the strongest terms. All right, Brian, thank you again. We really appreciate you and what you're doing and your thoughts and your willingness to come in here and share them. We appreciate it.
So what cities are the big June 14th
There's 100 cities or 150 or
Is it all on that website that you just, is it like if you follow that, you can find out where everybody's congregating?
If you scroll to the bottom of nokings.org, and, hat tip to Zero Hedge, I covered this as well. But there's so many locations that at one view on the map, you can barely see the land. And they're as far as Alaska.
I saw that.
Yeah, it's huge.
I saw that. All right, thank you so much. And I'm embarrassed. I, of course, now remember the name of the artist that makes the crowns. His name is Basquiat. And I'm a huge, huge fan. Thanks, Brian. And Caleb, let's get the next guest list up here for the upcoming shows. We have... what do we got here? There we go. Salted Cracker tomorrow. Mark Chankisi next week will be in New York.
Music when you do this part.
Sam Cooper. Well, you're the producer. Vivek coming back to talk about her. And that professor, this is on the 26th, Sam Vaknin. I hope I'll get the pronunciation when I finally talk to him. He was sort of got me thinking along the lines of what I was just talking to DC Draino about, was this shift towards externalizing affect and then seeing aggression elsewhere when it's your own aggression, and then needing to discharge emotion in a theatrical fashion. That is called the borderline process, and that is something that is really taking hold. And I want to get his thoughts on what that is and what we can do about it. All right, Caleb, anything else on your radar?
Nope. I said my warnings about Palantir. I was raised in this by all my story about my parents living off the grid. They were conspiracy theorists before that was a word. Well, do what you got to do. I'm almost thinking it's going to happen no matter what we want. I think they're going to push it on us no matter what. I think we should still resist it, but I have a feeling that's where they're going, because they've been pushing for this for 20-something years. This is what they want, is they want everyone to be not physically tagged, but they want everyone to have an ID and a number, and they're going to find ways until we get there. I honestly think that they might believe this is the only way to keep us safe. I think we have a new style of warfare that's coming. I think that drones are going to be, autonomous drones are really going to significantly affect commercial air flight for a short time until we have mitigations. And I think they're going to keep ramping things up until people finally break and say, please give us the national ID. Please give us a social credit score system.
With that good news, everybody have a great weekend. So I'm going to be hitting the air. I'm going to be in the air.
I think we got Alex Michelson for tomorrow too.
There is a show tomorrow. I'm sorry, I beg your pardon. Yes, Alex is my former partner on Fox 11 here in Los Angeles.
So he's been mentioning how weird it is that all these protective masks were handed out to all the rioters. Right. And he was like, who's paying for this?
He's seeing the fact that there are evidence of NGO action here and that it's coordinated. And we'll have to...
I also saw him do an interview where he's calling out now Gavin Newsom. He didn't used to do that back in the old days.
Show him those websites, the nokings.org and stuff, and see what he says. Well, show him and see what he says before he comes in tomorrow.
But it's interesting because, when you watch local news and you have news broadcasters, they basically just show the video and they talk, right? But Alex has been asking hard questions and he's been tweeting about it. And he's like, I don't get it. How could this be? And I like to see him pushing back because he wasn't pushing back against Gavin Newsom, and now he is a little bit. So it's kind of interesting to see the evolution of his thoughts. But love him. He's a local LA broadcaster, but he's seeing all the footage. He's seeing what's going on in LA.
Very good. He's very smart. He's very sharp.
We're living it down here. It's kind of scary.
But Susan, he's going to have to come before our 2:00 show. I have to get to the airport. So he's going to have to come at we have to start early tomorrow or something.
You'll be okay. We'll fit him in. So anyways, I just wanted to mention it.
So we are going to start at 2:00 tomorrow Pacific time. We will see you then.
Ta-ta.
Ask Dr. Drew is produced by Caleb Nation and Susan Pinsky. As a reminder, the discussions here are not a substitute for medical care, diagnosis, or treatment. This show is intended for educational and informational purposes only.
I am a licensed physician, but I am not a replacement for your personal doctor, and I am not practicing medicine here. Always remember that our understanding of medicine and science is constantly evolving. Though my opinion is based on the information that is available to me today, some of the contents of this show could be outdated in the future. Be sure to check with trusted resources in case any of the information has been updated since this was published. If you or someone you know is in immediate danger, don't call me, call 911. If you're feeling hopeless or suicidal, call the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 800-273-8255. You can find more of my recommended organizations and helpful resources at drdrew.com/help.